May include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's a hot afternoon, everybody, and this eagle's come down to drink. And this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Look at this, everybody. It's a really, really warm afternoon, and welcome to Safari Live. This is incredible. We've got an eagle, it looks like a yellow-billed kite, that has come down to drink at the waterhole. There it goes. Yellow-billed kite, beautiful, beautiful eagle. See that long, very square tail? Almost like a fork. And again, a very good and warm welcome to everybody. Welcome on Safari Live for this afternoon's Sunset Safari. And you with myself, Byron, and Dave on camera. And we've got Taylor and VM on the other vehicle. And then Steph and Brian on a walk this afternoon. Welcome to the ladies in the final control and all our viewers. And a special welcome to Windsor Oaks Elementary. Lovely to have you school kids with us again. Mrs. Newberry and Mrs. Hubble, it's great to have you with us. And just remember, everybody, you are live, and please send us your questions at hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or otherwise email us questions@wildearth.tv. I thought we'd start the afternoon off by coming and checking these water holes. It is very, very hot this afternoon. It's about 35 degrees Celsius or about 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Very, very hot. And we thought we'd see what came down to drink, and we got that yellow-billed kite, which was amazing. There are also some hardy-dar ibises drinking at the waterhole now, and also looking for insects around there. You can see they're sticking their beaks in the mud, possibly trying to find some food, worms or any little insects. It was really lucky to see that kite come down and drink water. I think it's because it's so hot, even the birds need a bit of water. That was a lovely start. That was really, really great. So our plan for this afternoon is we're going to carry on checking some of these little water holes and see if we don't have animals like elephant or buffalo nearby. Because it's been so warm, compared to this morning, the temperature's increased quite a bit. And because it's been so warm, I'm sure a lot of animals have been heading down to the water to feed, to drink, sorry, not to feed, to drink. And hopefully we get to see some activity around there this afternoon. So we're going to drive around and look for that. We're also going to search for a leopard. Perhaps we will get lucky and find a leopard that's possibly resting in the shade of a tree, or if we're really fortunate, even up in a tree. That would be wonderful. We're going to start driving around and looking for all these animals. And while we do that, my friend Steph would like to say hi to all of you. He's on the bushwalk.
I absolutely do want to say hi to you and welcome to the bushwalk. My name is Steph, and on camera today we've got Brian, and this is his little surprise all for you. Guess what that is? That's his thumb, and he's painted it just for you. Brian paints the thumb all the time, you see, and it's become quite a celebrity, this little thumb of his. What are we here to do? We're on foot in the same place that Byron is driving around in, and you'll meet Taylor a little bit later. We're walking around, we're trying to show you all the little things in the bush. Well, sometimes there's some big things as well. Sometimes we chased up termite mounds, like this one here, by buffalo and by elephant and by a variety of other things, but we're going to try and avoid that embarrassing thing today, and we're just going to sort of concentrate on all the interesting things. right off, one of the best places to look for interesting things is obviously underneath pieces of bark. Now for all of you kids out there, I want you to learn how to pick up a piece of bark. What you never do is you never stick your fingers underneath a piece of bark, because you don't know what's going to be underneath there. So we don't do that. What we do is we try and pick it up, and never ever towards us. So there's the two big don'ts. Don't put your hands underneath, don't lift it towards you. We always put our hands on the top and we lift it away from us. Alright, so I'm going to do that again for everybody. You put your hands on top and you lift away from you. And that way, if there's anything here that is scared of you, rather than running at you, it can run away and run to a safe place. What are we looking for underneath here? Well, scorpions and spiders and snakes and snails. And let's see what we can see here for you. Right there, oh, there was. That there is a daddy long-legged spider. But now I've chased that daddy long-legged spider because I was a bit careless and some sand fell on it. Where are you now? There we go. No, still running away from us. Shame, I gave that one a bit of a fright. And because I gave it a fright, we're going to respect it. We don't just kill spiders. Remember that spiders are our friends. And we'll leave that one alone for a little bit, and let's carry on looking underneath. There's a big piece of bark. Let's go and look over there. Come on. Now remember what I said? We don't stick our fingers underneath, and we move the stumps and the bark away from us, right? Let's see what we've got underneath here. There we go. There's a grasshopper that looks just like the ground. Look over there. Whoa, there was a grasshopper. Here we go. There's a grasshopper camouflaged to look just like the stumps. Why is it camouflaged? That's a good question, even if I am asking it to myself. Insects are camouflaged so they can hide away. So camouflaged means that it looks like the surroundings. So to be camouflaged is to hide away in the surrounding bush. And have a look, he's camouflaged the same color as the stump he's sitting on. Look at that. And they hide away because they don't want to be eaten, right? All right, let's carry on looking what we've got. So we've got one grasshopper so far. And we've got some mites. These are little creatures called mites. Ooh, and a very, very poisonous spider. I almost touched that. Wow, come and have a look here. That is a violin or a recluse spider, and they are some of the most poisonous spiders or venomous spiders that we have in South Africa. That there, the recluse or violin spider, and you definitely don't want to be bitten on the finger by that one. Wow. Now James, you've asked, is this spider a tarantula? James, that spider is not a tarantula. We do have tarantulas out here. We call them baboon spiders. That spider was called a violin spider, or I think you get them in North America. They're called recluse spiders. Very dangerous. You let that one bite you, you get a big sore. It takes months to get better. So you don't want to do that. And that's one of the reasons why we don't stick our hands underneath the bark. We just on top and away from you, right? Now let's see where this recluse spider went to. Probably just went into the shade here, yes. Come and have a look here. Now Eliza, you've asked me, how do grasshoppers fly? It's very easy. They jump into the air using their back legs, and then they have wings. They've got two hard wings in front and two soft wings at the back. The hard wings come out into the sides and help them to steer, and the back wings create lift by flapping very, very fast. So they got 4 wings, 2 that are hard and stick out to the side, and 2 that are soft that stick out to the back. The ones at the front steer, the ones at the back flap and create lift. Hopefully that answered your question. I see that this recluse spider is not wanting to be in the sun today. And believe me, it is so hot here, I can absolutely believe them. Look at my shiny bald head, it's busy sweating like a beacon. Lots of water coming out of my head today. So we're going to put the stump back. Why do we put the stump back? Because this is animals' homes, hey. We don't want to scare these animals any more than what we need to. So we're putting this back exactly where we found it, and there they have their home back. All right, we're gonna carry on with our walk and see what other things we can find you. All right, so on that note, and while we walk through this bush, we are gonna send you over to Byron, who's got an update for you.
It's so great that Steph's out there finding all these little creatures. We've had a lot of rain recently, a few days ago, so all those little animals are quite active at the moment. We're driving around and trying to see what we can find, but it's very, very hot. We saw some impala in the distance, but all hiding in the shade, in the thicket line, in the trees, or behind the trees. We're trying to see if we can't find a leopard lying in the shade of a tree, or maybe in the tree. That would be wonderful. Usually, because there's a cool breeze higher up, leopards do occasionally go and lie down in a tree to get that cool breeze and rest there for the day. Savannah has asked us a question. Savannah would like to know, are there bears in Africa? No, Savannah, we don't have any bears. So not in Africa. While I'm driving, also trying to have a look for any tracks of animals that may have moved around during the day. Maybe after our game drive, something like leopard or even lions that was still moving around. It was cool until about 10 o'clock this morning, and then the temperature really started to warm up and get very, very hot. And that's usually when these animals then go and look for shelter, and they try and hide out of the sun and rest for the day, and later when it gets cooler again, they'll then start moving. So just like us, when it's very, very hot, we prefer sitting in the shade and resting. Unless we're on the beach, of course. So as we're driving, I'm trying to move into areas that I think might be a little bit cooler. So we've got these places known as drainage lines. So that's a low-lying area, and usually that's the place that water will basically collect when it does rain, almost like a dry little riverbed or a creek. And we call that a drainage line. And there's one just off to the right. You can actually see the thick dense bush. And that's perfect areas for animals to hide in, like leopards, because it's much cooler there. We had a very exciting morning, everyone. We followed some lions, a male and a female, and these lions came across a group of inyala and tried to hunt them. The lioness lay down. Oh, hang on, there's some animals just off to our left. Hopefully it stays there. There's a beautiful impala. Look at this, everyone, a big male impala. And you see, as I was saying, a lot of these antelope, like the impala, all staying in the shade, trying to hide from the sun. But look at that, that's a beautiful, beautiful male impala. It's got the beautiful big horns. The females don't have horns. And Van has just asked us a question, and Van would like to know, what type of food do the leopards eat? And Van, this impala would be ideal for a leopard. Leopards do like to hunt impala. And the reason for that is because a leopard is solitary, which means it lives by itself. They don't need too much food, but a big full-grown impala like this is perfect for them, and they can feed on one this size maybe for 2 days. So a long time, and they don't have to share with anybody or any other leopards, any other animals, and they will eat something like this or any of the other antelope species we have in the area. You can have everything from the small steenbok, a very small antelope, even up to perhaps a young kudu, which is one of the larger antelope we have around in this area. But as you can see, they're all staying in the shade. It's very, very warm, so they're very clever. They'll stay out there or stay in the shade of the trees and try and feed, and as it cools down, they'll start moving around a lot more later. As I was telling you this morning, we had a very exciting morning with the lioness and a male that were watching some inyala and trying to hunt. And this lioness got very, very close to these inyala. She was lying down and as flat as she could, so she wouldn't be seen. And these inyala walked close, and she didn't see a young inyala, baby inyala, come very close to her. And as she saw it, she was a little bit too late, and the little inyala ran away. And the lioness tried to chase, but it just wasn't fast enough. And luckily, the inyala got away. And we've got a question from Harley, and Harley would like to know, do we have any giraffe in the area? We do indeed. We do have many giraffe, and hopefully we'll find some for you this afternoon. You would think it would be easy to find giraffe. These beautiful tall animals, you'd think maybe they stand out above the trees, but it's not always the case. Sometimes it is difficult to find these animals, because the tree is also very tall, and now with all these leaves that are currently coming out because of us moving into summer, it can make it a bit difficult. Even elephants can be hard to see sometimes. Just a lot of little impala tracks along the road, so there are a lot of impala around, and that's good because they are a good food source for some of the other predators. So lion and leopard will definitely try and hunt them. So if there's a lot of impala, or if there's lots of food in general for the predators, then the chances of seeing them are also a lot better. Now we've got to a spot where there's a very, very deep drainage line just beyond me over here to the right, and this looks ideal for animals to go and lie in. Much cooler down there, so I'm having a very, very careful look. We're going to carry on looking very carefully around this area, and while I do that, I know Taylor would love to say hello to you.
Good afternoon. Finally, we made it out after we managed to get Wendy up and going again. She's out of hospital, so she's going for her first spin after being off for a couple of weeks. Now, if you're unfamiliar with who I am, my name is Taylor, and on camera with me this afternoon, we've got Wiem, and I have to say a big hello to all the lovely children at Windsor Oaks Elementary School, as well as Mrs. Newbury and Miss Hubble. Hello to all of you. Remember, you're welcome to ask us as many questions as you can about all the different animals. Now, yesterday we were lucky and we got to see some lions. Today I want to try and show you a leopard. So I'm going to try and beat Byron to finding us a leopard. This morning we were very lucky and we managed to find a big boy leopard, a really, really big one that lives around this area. So we're going to go back to where he was last seen and see if he perhaps isn't sleeping in the shade somewhere. It's very, very hot today. I can't imagine that any of the cats would really be moving around too much. I know the only thing that I wanted to do today was spend the afternoon in the refrigerator or the freezer. Now, as we're driving around here, I know a couple of you, and especially Kia, is wondering if the animals are dangerous towards us in the cars. Now, luckily for us, we're not. The only time they become dangerous is if you don't respect them. So you must be able to read the animal's behavior, its body language. And this way, and this is what we are really well trained in, we go to school to learn about animal behavior, and the animals will tell you when they get cross with you or angry with you, and then you have to decide, do you move away or do you have to stand your ground? But typically in the vehicle we're relatively safe. We can outrun most of the animals, but we don't ever want to upset them. So if they say to us, oh, we're not happy today, maybe have something happened, maybe someone stood in a thorn and is very grumpy, well, then they'll tell us and we go, okay, Mr. Elephant, no problem, and we move away. And then we can go and find some more elephants that are happy to see us. But I'd like to hear from you who would like to see what animal today. Obviously, it's quite difficult to just try and find any ones that you request, but it'd be nice to know what everyone would be excited to see. Like I said, we're also going to go up ahead and just check a watering hole on our way towards where that male leopard was last seen, and perhaps we will see something in the water, maybe wallowing in the mud, trying to keep nice and cool. But so far, not even an impala. Right, I think we're going to very quickly go across to Byron, who's got a little Pumbaa for you.
I have indeed. Look, everybody, a warthog just before it moves behind that tree. And that warthog was just rolling in some mud, trying to cool down. You can see there, it was just in there. But let's see if I can move forward a little bit for you, get another view of it. Oh, look, everybody, there's a hippo behind it. Look at that. Wow, that is interesting. Hang on, let me see if I can get another view quickly for you. That is very interesting, everybody, because a hippo is usually in the water during the day, and especially when it's so hot. And they don't like to be seen when they're out of water. They are quite shy. And I wonder why this hippo is still out of the water, because it is very, very hot. So let's see. Let's have a good look around here. Where did it go? You'd think it would be very difficult. There he is, just off to the right. Wow, isn't that amazing, everyone? And I might get another view of him. Look how big it is. You can see he is a little bit shy and doesn't really want to show himself. But that's why I say it's very interesting to see this hippo out of the water. It's very hot. The hippo have actually got very sensitive skin, and they don't like to be baked in the sun for too long. It looks like he's moved off. I don't think we're going to get another view of it. Yeah, it's moved through very, very thick bush. We can hardly see it. I can't see it anymore. But I wonder if that hippo wasn't in that little waterhole that warthog was in, and maybe lying in the mud a bit, and for some reason decided to get up and maybe move into some shade, because that waterhole was quite open. Maybe it's getting a little bit too hot for him. So possibly moving into some shade, trying to hide out of the sun, and probably go and return to the water at a later stage. But it's interesting, the hippo, they don't eat any food in the water. they have to go out and look for food. They eat grass. So they walk huge distances looking for food, and especially now, we've had a very, very dry season and there's not a lot of grass around. We've had a very dry winter. So all the kids watching, it's winter down in southern Africa. Well, it was winter. We're now moving into spring and into summer, so it's getting very, very hot now. But in winter, we don't have lots of vegetation growing, lots of food for the animals. So some of these animals now have to walk even further to look for food. And Jeremiah has asked us a question about the hippo. Jeremiah would like to know, does a hippo have horns? And no, Jeremiah, a hippo does not. It does not have horns at all. But what they do have are what look almost like big tusks. They are really big teeth in their mouths, and some of those teeth can get to about this length, very, very long teeth. Two in the bottom and two in the top, and they've got two that point forward and two at the top that point forward. Just trying to see if I can get a glimpse of that hippo again. It's definitely moved off. So Jeremiah, those long sharp teeth of the hippo are basically there for protection, not because they needed to eat the grass. It's if the hippos fight with each other, and they often do when they are fighting for territory around a water hole, or perhaps if the males are fighting for territory and dominance for the females. But the let me just look back there quickly for a second. No, nothing. So Jeremiah, no horns, just really sharp teeth, big teeth, which they use for protection. And we need to be very, very careful if we do bump into any hippo, because they can cause serious damage if they do catch you. While we continue looking along this drainage line and these cooler areas, let's see what Steph has got on his walk.
We have found something very special for you. This is an assassin bug. Now, you can ask what an assassin is when you finished up with us, but what I want you to have a look at is that long, big, what we call proboscis on the front of them, their beak. You can have a look at that. That's where they get their name assassin from, is they have a long dagger that they spear into the heads of grasshoppers, and then they eat them. These are assassin bugs. Two of them. There are bugs, proper bug, and you can see the one on the top, he's got his dagger pointing down. It's just wiggling around a little bit. There's quite a wind blowing here where we are today. Maybe try these ones here, Brian. They're a little bit more, a little bit easier to. No, come. Where are you going? There you go. That's not shaking around as much. Just have a look at those beautiful colors. Bronze on the back and white and black along their sides with their tiny little heads, and then those long daggers. And they're sitting on these bushes waiting for other insects to come to this bush, and then they ambush them and eat them. Quite scary, eh? And these are quite big for assassin bugs. You probably find that they like to eat the biggest grasshoppers and the biggest beetles. And then we've got another beetle on this tree. Not a bug, this time a beetle. And this is one of my favorite beetles. Now, Aluza, I'll show you how big those bugs were in a second. This is one of my favorite beetles. It's called a fruit chafer. And this is a twin spot fruit chafer. And this beetle is sucking the juices out of this plant by biting into the top of it. Isn't that amazing? Now the tree is a big pump. Water evaporates off of the underside of the leaves, and it creates a big suction for water underneath the ground, and the tree can suck the water up from underneath the ground, and that is what the bug is busy sucking up right now, is the tree's juices. Now Lisa, let's go quickly back to your assassin bug, and I'll put my finger next to it so that you can see how big they are. Let's go this side. There's my thumb. I don't want to get my finger too close. They can poke me with their proboscis, and it's quite sore. Now my thumb is about as big as your two thumbs put together. Now Gustav, you've asked me if they're shy. They are shy, Gustav. They have very good eyesight, and they can see us standing here, and every time... Oh right, sorry Gustav, can they fly, you've asked me, excuse me. Yes, they can fly, absolutely. These are wings that are folded on their backs, and they can open them and they can fly away. So if you want to know how big they are, put your two thumbs next to each other. That's how big my one thumb is two of yours. So quite big, hey? You don't want to wake up with one of these on your pillow. Now James, you've asked me how many eyes do these bugs have? James, they've got two compound eyes, and what that means is they've got two eyes, one on either side of the head, and they are made up of many different eyes, many smaller eyes. So a compound eye is one round eye made up of lots of small eyes, and they've got one compound eye on each side of their head. Maybe if we ask Brian to get you a little bit closer, it's going to be a bit tricky. We can even see those eyes glinting in the sun. Let's set a task here. Sorry Brian, am I setting you up?
No, I'm close.
So there you can see, if you look closely at the eye, you should be able to see many small little eyes. And one day when you're exploring around your house and you catch a fly, have a look closely at the eyes of a fly and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Two big eyes that are made up of lots of small little eyes. Next time you catch a fly at home. All right, let's carry on going. Now, we are going to be saying goodbye to you at Winter Oak High. I just want to say thank you to all you little minds for joining us today, and we hope to catch you again another day, or when you're a little bit older, we'll still be walking around you hopefully. So wherever you are, have a good day. We'll see you again.
Look here everybody, some zebra. Isn't that fantastic? Just a quick little view as they're moving through the thicket. Also looking for some shade. And look how well camouflaged they are. And that means it's difficult for us to see them. They blend in very well. Those beautiful black and white stripes, just a quick little view of them. Let's have a look and see if I can't have another view for you, or get another view for you. Let's just see, can see more or less where they're moving. It's lovely to see some zebra. Maybe through there, hold on a second. I'll ask Dave if he can have a look through there. Can you get them? Maybe a little more off to the right, or to the left actually. Sorry Dave, to the left. See, it's very difficult for us sometimes to get these animals on camera for you. I think some of them might be a little bit shy. There we go. There you can see them. Well done, Dave. Isn't that fantastic? So for those viewers who have just joined us, we've got another school drive this afternoon with the kids from Windsor Oaks Elementary. It's always lovely to have young kids watching and sending us their questions and comments. Oh, looks like there was some kicking there. And zebra can get quite aggressive with each other. Well, often the stallions may fight each other for a bit of dominance, but usually what happens is a stallion will have a harem. He'll have a number of females that he will look after and try and cover and then mate with. So I'm not sure in that group if there was another younger stallion. Perhaps occasionally the younger stallions might try and challenge the older ones, but they can get quite aggressive. Even the females will just get aggressive towards the males if the males get a little bit too close, and they'll often turn and give a double kick. They've got incredibly powerful kicks. You've got to be so careful. And zebra do cause a lot of damage towards each other, either biting or kicking. We've just lost them now. They've moved deeper into the bush and we can't see them anymore. We've been lucky. We've seen some really nice antelope. Oh, and there's a beautiful bird I'd like to show you quickly. It's just landed at the top of the tree off to the right. A magpie shrike. That beautiful long tail and black and white markings on it. It's called a magpie shrike. Look how well it balances in the wind on top of that acacia tree. And you can see all those sharp thorns on that acacia tree. A number of different species of acacia, but they all have thorns. And that bird is balancing beautifully in the wind with that tail flowing behind it, or blowing behind it. You see how it's sitting with its beak open. And the reason for that, and let's just close it now, the reason for that is it's trying to cool itself. In very warm conditions, these birds open their beaks, and it's known as gular flutter. They allow cool wind, or that breeze, to flow through their beak, and there's a flap, a gular flap, which allows them to regulate their body temperature. That wind over that flap helps to cool the body and cool the temperature. Very beautiful. Lovely. So we're going to continue our search for more animals. We're heading towards another waterhole, possibly going to get some action around there. It is warm, as we said earlier. And while I do that, let's get an update from Taylor.
You've caught me in the act of reversing, and I'm trying to get out of this drainage line. We're having a look at Tingana's last known location from this morning. So it sounds like he did settle down in that very, very dense thicket. Oh, I'm just trying to multitask. Here we go, almost out. And I've just checked that spot, and it seems as though he's not there anymore, but I don't see any tracks coming out just yet. So possibly he was walking in that drainage line, which we saw him do quite a bit, well, the brief sighting that we had of him this morning. So I just want to cut up a little bit further, and there's a little dip where the drainage line and this road sort of meet together. And this is a nice soft sandy road. So technically I should be able to pick up on his tracks quite easily. However, I'm also checking along the bank, so I apologize if I don't look back at all of you. I want to make sure that I don't miss him, because you won't believe those leopard spots, they blend in so well. Right, let's go down here. Just checking. I don't think he would have gone particularly too far. He had a full belly and he was hot, and it's been hot the entire day. Now, my experience with big male leopards is that they like to move when it's slightly cooler. And let's hope that that is exactly what has happened, and he hasn't gone too far. We'll just check here. It's so much cooler down in this drainage. I don't blame him for wanting to sit down here. Didn't see anything as we came through here, but we'll carry on with this fire break just for a little bit longer. Just check the soft sandy section. Nope, doesn't look like anything's happened here. Just a couple of impala that have been walking through by the looks of it. We'll have to just check very carefully, and I do hope we manage to find him. He's such a beautiful leopard, and I haven't really had the opportunity to spend much time with him. I've seen him once during the marathon week, the Mara week that we did. Had a little view of him. He was calling quite a bit. And then I've seen him twice, sort of just after drive has ended, very briefly. And then of course this morning was my first proper sighting of him during the day. Now let's check here, because there's another little thicket. Could be a good spot. Can you hear the black-headed oriole? Can you see it over there, Via? There we go. Look at this beautiful black-headed oriole that's calling. Ah, just stopped for a little hello. Now he's off, carrying on with business. Now, Sally, you want to know, do we ever see any cheetah on Djuma? I haven't seen any since I've been here, but I haven't been here for particularly long, just yet, almost 2 months. And I definitely think that you could. There's a couple of open areas, and in the winter months especially, all this bush sort of dies down, and then most of it becomes quite open. But they seem to like cheetah plains a lot. There's a pair of brothers that we've seen on a regular basis over the last few months. And we saw them a couple of nights ago, actually, which was quite nice. My first time seeing those brothers. But they move over quite a big area from sort of Londolozi, Mala right up towards Cheetah Plains. So those are good areas. So if I get any wind that there are perhaps cheetah, well, we know where I'm going. I'm going to shoot across to, of course, Cheetah Plains. But it's not impossible. I've heard the other presenters say that they have seen cheetah indeed on Djuma, sort of coming around the corner, being surprised. Oh, there we go. VM has just said that he's seen cheetah on quarantine before. It's a beautiful area for cheetah, and there's always lots of impala. So that's something good to look out for. Now, unfortunately, I haven't seen any tracks just yet, but oh wow, I'm not going to give up just yet on the search for Tingana, but let's go back across, and I'm so envious as to what Byron has found.
I have found something very interesting, and look at this. Can anybody spot something unusual at this waterhole? That is right. Look at that very, very white piece of foam above the water. That is incredible. This is great. So, as some of our viewers know, we had a really big storm about 2 nights ago, and a lot of these water holes filled up. So what that has caused is a lot of animals and little creatures, little insects and reptiles, all getting very active because of all the water. And what that is a foam nest frog, or foam nest frog's nest rather. And it gets its name, foam nest frog, because of this beautiful foam nest that it builds. And it's an incredible story. So what happens is the males and females will call, and that's how they find each other. And especially the females will call, and the male will try and attract the female by calling, and also putting on a bit of a display. And then what he does is the female will go and crawl up to the top of a branch, usually above water, and I'll explain why shortly. And she'll sit right on top of these branches, and the reason for that is then the males are attracted to her and they will try and mate with her, and not just one male. Occasionally it may be 2 or 3 males around this female, and they try and move around and try and fertilize the eggs which the female secretes. With all this liquid that's around her and all that movement, it starts to foam up and it forms this beautiful foam nest. What happens is that then protects the eggs. The eggs sit inside this nest. The adult frogs then leave, and the eggs sit inside that nest. And that foam is said to be a bit distasteful, so it prevents predators from raiding the nest. And it takes about 7 to 10 days for the eggs to hatch, and those little tadpoles then wriggle down and drop straight into that water hole. And that's why they build a nest or form that nest always above little water holes like this, so that the tadpoles can then drop straight into the water and live and survive until they eventually become frogs. Isn't that amazing? That is so great. It's the first one of the season for me, and I doubt many people have seen too many of them, because we've just had some rain and we've moved out of that dry season. That is great. That is really, really fantastic. And foam nest frog. I love seeing these little things, these little creatures that we don't often get to see. Every now and then, depending on the time of the year and the changing of the seasons, you start seeing more and more of this activity, especially in summer. A lot more rainfall, a lot more insects, which means food for those types of animals, food for the frogs. It's really a wonderful time of year. All the birds are back, the migratory birds. And James has made a comment and said, hopefully we get to see the frogs sometime soon. I hope so too, James. That'll be great. We do occasionally find them at night. If you're lucky, you can find them sitting on the trees. But it is quite difficult. So maybe one evening we should go and sit close to a waterhole and just hear all the frogs, maybe after the next rains. As soon as it rains again, if we go and sit there, perhaps we'll get lucky and see some frog activity. We hear them, but they're very difficult to see occasionally. And Paul has made a comment, and Paul has said he wonders why nature hasn't colored that foam green, perhaps to blend in with the trees. Good question, Paul. But you know what often happens, and we have this with certain species of insects. I think that it's bright white so that it can stand out, so that animals actually think it's probably poisonous. Usually bright colors are associated with poison. It's known as aposematic coloring, and what that is, it means is that these bright colors, and you see it usually with butterflies like African monarch, they're very distasteful and poisonous, so animals don't eat them because of these bright colors. They then associate poison with those bright colors, so I'm assuming that possibly that bright white stands out a lot, and the chances of animals then going and looking to feed on that nest or raid the nest are a lot slimmer. So the chances that those tadpoles will survive are far better. So that would be my guess. I think probably because it's associated with poison. It's really warm out here, and I wonder how Steph is doing on his walk in this heat.
I'm also very hot, Byron. Thank you very much. It's a blistering day here today, and it's just one of those first days of summer as it's coming along. Now, we're busy trawling the same as Byron. We're busy trawling all the water points that we know of. And these are still quite full, I must say. After the little bit of rain that we managed to have, the amount of water that is collected in these depressions is actually astonishing. Most of these depressions are at least knee deep, and they are almost full. Let's see what we can do. There's now all this life coming into these depressions, from tadpoles to terrapins to dragonflies. Lots of wasps, oh, excuse me, I almost fell over. Lots of wasps are collecting mud from the corners or the edges of the pan to build their nest, mud dauber wasps, or delta wasps as we call them here. So these pans are starting to become these nodes, these life bubbles basically, and it's just going to be so interesting to watch them evolve over the coming weeks, because they have a life. They start out young like this one is, and has their algae and detritus, and then they sort of mature into these clear pans and generally just end up being mud baths for buffalo, rhino and elephant by the end of the season. But just a wonderful thing to spend some time with. Now, they look cool enough to get into, and of course it would be wonderful to go and soak inside one of these, but it would ruin my microphone and I wouldn't want to get out, so that would sort of be the end of the safari for me this afternoon. See if we can get this dragonfly here. I don't know, no, it's going to be a little bit difficult. There's a dragonfly that is on our side over here. Just have a look at that. Basically just using the wind to create lift, not flapping much at all, staking claim over this particular pan and hawking for insects. They catch the insects in these basket-like front legs of theirs. Here's another one. Oh, he was just chased away. Now let's see if this one comes back. Yes, coming back. That's actually a different one. Oh, it's just so peaceful here at the moment. I must be honest with you, one of the true pleasures. Here we go, here he's back again. What's quite incredible is that they're coming to one side of the pan, the downwind side, using the wind to slowly flit their way across, and then come buzzing back again to this side. Yeah, they're having a dance with one another. Let's see if they turn around again and come back. Yeah, they come back again, right back past us, yeah. It's a real challenge for Brian to keep these in view. I must be honest with you, they are some of probably the most difficult subjects to film. Very hard to predict where they're going to be going. And of course, and just the one species I see, just this yellowy kind of one. But anyway, let's carry on with our safari and make life a little bit easier for Brian. While we stood here and were looking at the dragonfly, well, why we actually hid behind the bushes and came to this pan in the first place was we spied some kudu that were just in front of us over here, and I'm wanting to see if we cannot see them. Kudu can be very, very difficult to spot in the bush because they're the same color as the surrounding grays of the branches and the twigs, and they have those wonderful stripy sides with the dots of white on them that give them this sort of dappled stripy look when you're viewing them in vegetation like this. I'm hoping we can sneak a little bit closer. Let's see if we can. We're using the road here because it's nice and quiet to walk on. It's a bit easier than trying to brush our way through all the ponds. I don't see those kudu anymore. They probably heard us coming a mile away. They've got ears very similar to me, but unlike myself, who's near deaf, they can hear much better. Even our whispers at that pan were probably very clearly audible to these kudu. Now, what we have got to watch out for in these pans and these series of pans as we approach them is buffalo. And I think Byron has got himself a buffalo, probably hopefully in one of these pans. You can see what they do.
I do indeed have some buffalo, Steph. They are really planted in this little mud wallow. Look at that. just as I thought, with all this heat and the bit of rain that we had, all these mud wallows have filled up these little pans, and animals like the buffalo love to wallow in them. These are two old bulls known as Daga boys, and Daga comes from the Zulu word for umdaga, which means mud. And you can see why they get that name. These old males love to roll around in the mud, and the reason for that is it cools them down and also protects their skin from insects like ticks and fleas. And aren't they enjoying that? It looks very, very comfortable and cool in there, in the water. Oh, look at that. That's fantastic. Really, really is lovely. Old males like this don't like to move around too much. They choose to find areas where there's good food and water, and that they don't have to cover large distances like the massive herds that we get passing through here. They'll move huge distances looking for food and water. So what happens is these old bulls often split away from the herd, and they'll form these small bachelor groups, anywhere between 2 up to 10 or 15 males sometimes, depending on food and water availability. And then what happens is they like to hang around in pools like this, and they don't have to walk as far. But if the herds do come past again, these males may try and meet up with them and possibly try and mate with the females if they are around, and then eventually leave them again and move off on their own. Can imagine there's a bit of a cool breeze at the moment, and I think with this cool breeze and these buffalo lying in the mud and in the wallow, it's perfect for them at the moment. Perfect conditions, really comfortable, really cool, and I'm actually very jealous of them, I must be honest, because it is very, very hot, and they seem completely relaxed and happy over there. They hardly move. Every now and then you might see that they actually roll onto their backs or roll over, and all that does is just covers the back again, cools it down. Interestingly enough, while they're in these little mud wallows, we have little terrapins. And we've got these little terrapins which are freshwater turtles, and they will actually feed off the ticks on the buffalo while these buffalo are lying in the mud wallows. It's very, very interesting. The terrapins love feeding on the ticks, and as these animals like these buffalo lie there, then they'll go and feed on them. And Paul has asked us a question. Paul would like to know, what is the average lifespan of a buffalo? So Paul, it's a bit tricky to say. It depends if they meet up with lions or not. And as we've seen the last few days, the buffalo have not been very successful against lions. Lions have been hunting them and doing very well at that, because the buffalo aren't feeding as much and they're a little bit weaker. So the lions have been very successful in killing buffalo. But generally speaking, the lifespan of a buffalo is probably around 20 to 22 years. That's usually how old they may get. And again, I say that's an average. It all depends. If they get hunted, if they get diseases from at an earlier age, that may cause them to die a little bit earlier. But that would be an average. They really don't look like they are going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And we are going to probably leave these buffalo and let them enjoy their mud wallow. While I do that, I'm very jealous, but Taylor has got a big surprise for you.
Look who we've managed to come across, all thanks to Mike and his eagle eyes. Coming back to exactly where he last was. So when we last saw him this morning, he's actually moved back to where we initially saw him, and you can see how he's tucked himself away underneath all those shrubs and a fallen tree. But not even this little bit of shade that he's found himself can cool the king. You can see him panting quite heavily. perhaps with that large belly that we saw him with this morning. That might not be on the cards for this afternoon, but we'll just hang around and see and hopefully he moves. Something that I absolutely love about his face, and hopefully he looks towards us again, are those beautiful markings between his eyes. They really are sort of quite unique, almost forming like a cross on his head. An X marks the spot. Can you see that? That's really beautiful. And I was looking through photos of Tingana today, and that was something that caught my attention. Seen as though we've been speaking about identifying features of the various leopards in the area. Look at the size of his dewlap, though. It really is quite impressive. And that's normally an indication of maturity. Not all leopards get it. I have seen some older boys who don't really have a well-developed dewlap. But of course, male leopards like the Anderson male and of course Mbovala, the two contenders for the largest leopards in the sands, they have got massive dewlaps. Something seems to be biting him. You can see the flies are obviously annoying him quite a bit. Now I'm getting a nice suntan here in the sun this afternoon. Shame he's getting very frustrated with all these flies. There are lots of midges around. The ants have started to release their alates, so they're all out as well. Now, you probably can hear him shuffling around and kicking his legs quite a bit there. Maybe there's some ants or something crawling on him. Now, Birthday Bash, you're wondering how old Tingana is. For the top of my head, I can't remember, but something wants me to say around 9 years old. Am I correct? Definitely well worn, or he's got lots of experience to show on his skin. You can see his ears are a little bit tattered as well. Looks like he's got an old scar across his nose, perhaps from an altercation that he had with another male leopard. Maybe Mvula got on the wrong side of him. Ah, okay, maybe even Shadow, maybe even a female leopard. They can be quite feisty sometimes and give the odd swipe. Thanks, VM. But at least he's sitting still this time, and he hasn't got his head tucked between his legs, fast asleep. And maybe it was a reason as to why we only got a sneak and a little sneak peek of him this morning, so that we were able to go around and have a look at the young Ingrid's dam female. And then, of course, now, well, Tingana, the show is yours. Look at him, he's so beautiful. If I had air conditioning or a fan for him, I'd definitely hold it over him. I'm so happy to hear that you're all sending in all your screenshots. That's fantastic. Remember, if you'd like to also ask any questions or just share your pictures with us or your favorite moments, you're welcome to do so by either hashtagging Safari Live on Twitter, or alternatively, you could send us an email, questions@wildearth.tv. That's lovely. And I'm sure he's enjoying the rest after Shadow has been trying to follow him around over the past couple of weeks. Oh, he's having a well-deserved break. I'm just very quickly going to apply some more sunscreen. Sorry, I'm sitting directly in the sun and I'm burning away. But while I do that, I think let's go back across to Steph for a very quick update.
It is an incredibly hot day. It definitely warrants sunscreen today, and we all know how much I love playing with elephant dung and fire. They're almost two of my favorite things. And while you've seen me make some fire with a flint stone or a fire steel, I haven't shown you any other ways to make fire, well, barring of course matches and a lighter. But just have a look at how intense today's sun is. Here's a magnifying glass, sort of standard issue. Have a look at how quickly we can get smoke going here. Concentrate, just get it going a little bit, and then all we do is we add a little bit of oxygen. And we have flame. It's incredible, eh? All just from the power of the sun. Of course, you can add some dried leaves and grass to that and it puffs into flame pretty quick. But that isn't the only way you can make flame out here. Obviously we can do it with any piece of glass. Doesn't necessarily need to be a magnifying glass, just a bit easier with a magnifying glass. But using some pretty normal household chemicals that you have around the house, you can also produce a decent enough flame. Build yourself a receptacle out of whatever you need. This is just my elephant dung. Add a little bit of this. A decent amount, not too much. Close up again. Introduce this in the form of a drop or two. And then what we do is we just wait for the reaction with another piece of fuel. And let's see, there we go. And voila, you have your flame. There we go. Fire 101 using some simple chemicals just that you find around the house. Pretty cool. Excuse me, I've got a piece of ash that flicked up into my eye there. But very, very effective. Amazing, eh? All these little tips and tricks around here. And that is alternative fire methods. Sort of 101. I'm going to send you over to Byron, who's got a hippo for you.
Oh no. And we've just got to Buffelshoek Dam, everybody, and there was some Inyala that just came down to drink. Have a look at that. Beautiful male over there, and there's the female. And they had a nice drink of water, and now they're moving off. And then we've also got the resident hippo here at Buffelshoek Dam. And there it is, and that's where you'd expect to see a hippo, not walking around the bush like we saw earlier. And have a look closely. Look at that little terrapin on its back. Fantastic, look at that. That is great. Wow. Remember I spoke about the terrapins feeding off the ticks off of these animals. They do it off hippo too. So if there are any ticks on the hippo, these terrapins will swim around underneath and feed on those ticks and pick the ticks off. I'm sure if we get a lot more rain, this hippo will be very, very happy, because this dam will most likely increase in depth, have a lot more water flowing into here, and then it'll probably be completely submerged, which is great. And there's a lot happening here. Just off to the right, right across in front of us, we can see some kudu. Look at that. And I wonder if they possibly didn't have a drink just before we got here, and they may be moving around to go and feed again. There's a young male on the left. See those horns? Still quite small. not those beautiful large spiral horns that we usually see on the big males, and that's a female without the horns. Really lovely to sit here and watch all these animals around the water. And that's what I said to you right in the beginning. I said our plan is to check these water holes. If you're lucky, we might get a leopard or two around, but we weren't lucky. Taylor was, but we have been seeing a lot. We saw hippo out the water, just moving from one little water hole or mud wallow. We saw 2 buffalo wallowing, and now this hippo and the nyala drinking, and the kudu. If we're quiet, maybe these... Looks like these kudu want to come and drink. Let's see, look how they're all moving down. Oh, this is great, everyone. This is really, really great. I'm going to keep my voice down a bit. If we sit quietly, maybe they'll go down to drink. You must remember, these animals are all very, very aware and alert when they approach water, because they are vulnerable when their heads are down and they're drinking. So they are just very, very careful when they do approach water holes, because they know there's a possibility that there's some predators waiting in the bushes nearby, especially on hot days. Okay, look, they're going down to drink. Fantastic. And Roger's just made a comment and said that they are such beautiful animals. They are indeed, Roger. Really amazing, graceful antelope. Look at that, they're all coming down. This is quite a large herd of kudu. Lisa has asked what waterhole we are at. Lisa, this is Buffels Hook Dam, and look how full it is because of the rain we had the other night. Can you believe it? From just 4 days ago, this was a tiny little pool of water just in the corner, and it's filled up. So I'm sure all these animals are very happy. Look at that. Oh, there's perfect light on them now too. Look at those big pink ears. And that's because they've got such a great sense of smell. Sorry, they've got such a great sense of hearing. Their sense of smell is also very good, but their sense of hearing is incredible. And those large ears always turning and listening out for potential danger. See that wonderful reflection. Look at that. If you were a photographer now, you'd be having a field day. Looks like these kudu are going to drink one by one and then probably move on. I'm going to sit here for a few more minutes, but while I do that, Steph has got something venomous he'd like to show you.
And there is an old faithful that we've had throughout the year so far, the olive thick-tailed scorpion, the most common venomous scorpion that we find here at Djuma Private Game Reserve, and also one that is responsible for stinging the most people in this particular area. It ranks right up there as about double or triple the pain of a bee sting when you do get stung by one of these guys. And generally you get stung by these scorpions when you're collecting firewood or jiggling a piece of wood around in a fire. So the heat has chased out the scorpion from its cavity or underneath its log, and it's then resting underneath the log and your fingers touch it. Usually you get stung between 2 and 3 times. They sting in rapid succession. And although that looks small, let me put my finger next to it so that you can see it is actually quite a small scorpion. Not a very big one at all, but this body length probably about as the size of my thumb nail, and then the tail probably about double that, stretched out fully. So quite a small scorpion in actual fact, but one that packs an unbelievable punch. By far not the most deadly scorpion that we find here. That belongs to the black, hairy, thick-tailed scorpion. And that scorpion is easily about 5 or 6 times bigger than this one and packs a much more deadly punch. But I know this is an olive thick-tailed scorpion. I don't know if you can see that olivey sheen, olive sheen that it has to its legs and its tail. And also the bands on its legs are quite evident. It has these light and dark colored bands on its tail, belonging to the genus Europlectes, and then its species name is olivaceus or olivaceus, the olive thick-tailed scorpion. And this scorpion will be hunting for woodlice, crickets, lizards, anything that basically it can overpower and catch. And it will grab with its pincers, sting quickly with its tail. The tail, or the poison in the tail, or the venom in the tail, quickly immobilizes the prey and starts the digestive process outside of the scorpion's body, liquefying the insides. The scorpion then uses its pincers to dismember the carcass and will eat basically everything, barring sometimes the most or the hardest, the most chitinous of the exoskeleton they will sometimes discard. But generally speaking, most of its prey is eaten. Very fast scorpions, very fast moving scorpions, even though you tend to find them in the same places underneath these woods. They don't really move from woodpile to woodpile. Young scorpions of course would, but older ones not really. And we're going to put him back where we found him, underneath this log. I hear that I've created a bit of debate on what two chemicals are mixed, or household chemicals are mixed to create that spark. And I think what I'll do is I'll leave it as a bit of a riddle for us to think out, giving you clues every now and again, and potentially I'll tell you by the end of the show. So what I can tell you is there are two chemicals that are abundant, they're easy to get over the counter in supermarkets, and they are used generally as an antiseptic. And let's see if you can guess what they are. So easily obtainable over the counter at your local supermarket, very cheap, used as an antiseptic. Should be able to get you halfway there. You're welcome to send, of course, your answers through to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive, and I'll share some of them, or well, I'll share some of your guesses or your answers with everybody as well, and then we'll see about telling you what they were a bit later on. You know, you never know when you're going to be stuck out in the bush with a chemist next to you and you need to all of a sudden make a fire. One of those things. All right, it gives us a chance now to carry on. I think we've been in this particular area now probably for the last 25 or 30 minutes, and there's another series of pans down this particular road and also into the block when we are heading out in this direction. I was just telling Brian that in January, when all of these little depressions are full of water, you can expect a buffalo to lie up in these depressions. Now this is almost an exact buffalo size, or probably 2 buffalo sized depression, and is created literally out of elephants digging up some roots, probably at the base of these trees here somewhere. There's some root systems that got here. Elephants would dig it up, it would fill with a bit of water, warthog would go in there, buffalo would go in there, rhino would go in there, and all of a sudden you've got this bigger depression. It starts to wash off the clay and the mud on those bodies, and it'll start to cement the bottom of these depressions, which keeps water in there longer. And of course that's how pans start to develop. Every year the buffalo will come down and make it a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, eventually getting to the water table, and of course that's when it becomes a natural pan. An almost permanent pan is when the water table then, it gets so low that it's the bottom of the pan is lower than the top of the water table, if that makes any sense. Sounded a bit confusing to me as well. Anyway, we're going to carry on and we'll basically see what is lying around these next pans. We're going to send you over to Taylor, who's got an update for you.
Now, thankfully Tingana got up and he actually moved out of that little cool spot that he was sitting in, which had a couple of leaves hiding his face, and now we've got an even better view of him. And he still looks rather hot, but at least he hasn't gone back to sleep yet, and hopefully he won't. I think he is just waiting as the sun drops, and it is doing that very quickly. We know how quickly that sun disappears behind the horizon, and finally there's actually a cool breeze coming through now, which I am enjoying very much, and I think VM is appreciating it too. Tingana, I don't know if you're getting this lovely breeze we're getting because you're so low and down in the drainage, but I suppose at least he's out of the sun. You can't have everything. No, don't go back to sleep. Keep those eyes open, as we would like to see some action. And I'm so glad that finally we've got the leopards back. Hopefully this will be the start of some type of a trend, and Karula will come back with her cubs, and perhaps we'll see Shadow. I've only ever seen Shadow once at the very beginning when I first started here at Wild Earth, and I haven't seen her since. I think it was actually in the first week. You can see the flies are bothering him terribly, even his tail is going. Come on, use it as a swatter. You're not swatting very well. Here we go. Must be something biting him, because it seems as though whatever's going after him, it seems to be around his rear end. Hello, Willow, who is 4 years old. Willow, I hope you're enjoying watching this show. Isn't it amazing that we're sitting with this big, beautiful leopard? Now, Willow wants to know, will he growl at the flies? I don't think so. I think he'll pull a couple of faces, and of course you can see he gets a little bit irritated with all those flies. He's kicking his legs around and swatting his tail and trying to bite them. Look at him doing all these crazy things. Now he's trying to swat them with his paws, but I don't think he'll growl at them too much. There we go. What are you going to do? Oh, I thought he was going to get up again for us. But at least I'm really happy that he's decided to come out, and I think he's sat on some nice sort of cool soil. If I were him, I would try and find the part of the drainage that's still a bit damp from the rain that we had, and I think that would be a nice spot to go and sit. Perhaps he will move, though, with all these insects biting him. He looks to be very frustrated at the moment. I'm still panting really hard, trying to cool down. Don't worry, Mr. Tingana, it won't be too long before it gets nice and cool, and you'll be able to carry on with your day. And hopefully we'll be able to spend a bit of time with Tingana this afternoon and see what he gets up to. You know what I'm like? I like to sit and watch the animals sleep, of course, to only be rewarded with them up and moving around. Now, Janine, you're wondering if any of the big cats purr. You know who purrs really well? It's those cheetah. They purr so loudly it almost sounds like a car engine rumbling. But unfortunately, we don't really hear the leopards and the lions purring. They do make all sorts of strange noises, and perhaps, maybe it's something I'll do a little bit later for you. I don't want to do it right here when a Tingana is sitting just a couple of meters away. But perhaps I'll do my leopard call for you, and you can tell me, or maybe we'll have a challenge today. Maybe we can challenge Steph and Byron to leopard calls, and we can see who does it the best. Like I said, though, I won't be able to do it right here. So I can imagine it would probably upset Tingana a little bit, and of course, we don't want to do that. It's so hot at the moment that the birds aren't even wasting their time singing away. It only seems to be the couple of flies that are annoying me and annoying Tingana. And of course the cicadas in the very far distance. But even they seem few and far between today. Now Andrew wants to know who VM's favourite leopard character is. VM, who's your favourite leopard?
That's a tough one.
VM says it's a tough one. He's now pondering.
Well, I suppose you go on too much at the top.
Well, Andrew, we are actually sitting with VM's favourite leopard at the moment. He says that it is indeed Tingana, and I don't blame him. He's a beautiful leopard. I still have yet to see the Anderson male, and I can't wait for that day. I probably will get out after the sighting and do handstands and cartwheels for anybody that's willing to watch. And I've been practicing my cartwheels, so they're getting more and more graceful by the day. But I think we're going to have to start doing rain dances again. As the rain, just the clouds keep building up, we get a bit of lightning and then we're not getting any more. Well, it's getting hot enough, as you can see. It's so bright and so sunny here. Now, I'm very happy, like I said, that we've managed to find Tingana this afternoon, and I know he's just sitting not doing very much at the moment. But one thing that you have to remember when you do come on safari is you have to be patient. If you want to see the action, you've got to be willing to sit and be prepared. Just even if you sit quietly and watch, you don't have to say much, and just enjoy it until those exciting moments unravel. But let's see what he's up to, if those flies are still pestering him. And I apologize if you can hear some squeaking. We've parked at a very odd angle. I'm sort of parked on a slope of a drainage line, and I keep squeaking on the steering wheel. You can see those flies on the top of his left ear on our right-hand side of the screen. Well, they were sitting there now. And like I was saying, the flies that are around at the moment seem to be biting. They were biting me yesterday, and I actually got stung by something in my eye this morning while on drive, while lurking around Arethusa. I don't know what it was. It could have actually been, I don't actually know what it was. It was a funny looking thing, and I think that's probably a variety of different insects that are coming out or after those rains. So if my eye looks a little bit red today, it's because I got stung and I'm having a little bit of an allergic reaction, but don't worry, I'll be alright. You see lots and lots of flies buzzing around him. Now, I was surprised that he didn't go and scavenge on one of those buffalo carcasses that we've been seeing over the last couple of days, because he wasn't far. Apparently he was in Torchwood, not too far away from Cheetah Cut Line. And of course we had the one carcass just off Drakensberg Road, the buffalo that died from the injury that he sustained from another buffalo. And then of course the youngish buffalo that we saw off Mamba Road, which the lions were feeding on one morning and one afternoon. I thought that he probably would have picked up the scent and headed straight in that direction. Right, let's very quickly go across to Byron.
Taylor's got a leopard, and look what we've just found, this beautiful lioness. I'm surprised she's walking around because it is still so warm. We're almost back we're across from the Vuyatela. Look at that, she walked right past us. And I think this is the female that we found this morning. Let's turn around quickly. Just trying to see where the male is. The male was with her earlier. Just gonna have a quick turn around here and just see if we can't see the male. No, I don't see him. It's maybe too hot for him to walk around. But let's see, there's a lot of impala in that direction that female's walked, but she is out in the open. The chances of her hunting now are probably very slim, and they've seen her already. They've already started to alarm call at her. You may hear the alarm calls as we get closer. Hang on a second, I think I can hear them, and all the impala off to the left. And just have a look at this behavior. It's very, very interesting. Here we go. Oh, look there. There's another lioness and male straight ahead. So this is a different lioness, everybody. Oh, wow, this is exciting. That is the pair that we found this morning, that male and female. Now it'll be interesting to see the interaction. There's actually so much going on here. I just quickly want to show you, just to the left, look at these impala, how they are alarm calling. Listen to them. You hear that? But look how they're all walking towards the lions. And let me catch up to this female and I'll tell you why. So what they're doing is they want to make sure they don't lose sight of this lioness, because lions are generally ambush predators. So if the impala can see the lions, there's little chance of them surprising them and potentially hunting them. So what they do is they walk after the lions to make sure they can see them and therefore avoid being surprised. And also that alarm calling will then hopefully deter them and cause them to move off, because then they know they've been seen, so they lose that element of surprise. Have a look here. Let's watch this interaction. Oh wow, this is fantastic. Yeah, exactly. Greeting one another, rubbing up against each other. Let's see what the male does. This could be interesting. Now he's got two females around him. Smiling. He may do that phlegm and grimace that we... Not quite. No, not quite. But look at that, and that other lioness has just carried on. So, I have absolutely no idea what just happened and why that lioness is moving. That is incredible. I've never seen that before. Just gonna sit still while this lioness walks past us. Wow, right next to us. And here comes the male. What you may scent mark. Oh, there we go, exactly, look at that. Spraying some urine, and what he does is he scratches the soil. So what he is doing is he's exposing the fresh soil, and that will then cause that scent to last a little bit longer. So he's scent marked this bush right next to us, this little bush. Now I actually don't know what we should do. We should follow that other lioness, but judging by where she's going, she's walked off into that drainage line. It's very thick down there, we won't be able to get there or follow her down there. And I know they did have the rest of the pride this morning briefly, and they did move through into that thick drainage line. They're possibly not too far from there, and maybe she is just going to join up with them. Let's stick with these two and see where they're going. They're very close to these impala. This was the lioness we saw almost kill an Inyala this morning, but I think that they too far out into the open to have any chance of hunting these impala. Wasn't that interaction just amazing? But this male is very intent on staying with this lioness. He is definitely interested in mating with her. We have not seen them mating yet, so I'm not sure. He's possibly just waiting and seeing, and perhaps in the next day or two they may mate. He clearly thinks she is ready to mate, and that's why he's staying with her. We did see him doing phlegm and grimace, which is how they tell whether or not the females are in estrus. They taste their urine, and they use an organ known as the Jacobson's organ, and they taste the urine, they push that scent onto that organ, and that allows them to tell whether or not the females are in estrus. And it's not just the lions that do it, there are other animals that do it too, but the lions, they really put on this amazing face, this snarling face, and that's when they're pushing that scent onto that organ, and it's known as the phlegm and grimace. This is really incredible, everyone, and I'll tell you why. It's because it's so hot, and usually lions do end up resting during the day, but it just shows you animals will change their behavior regularly. No book and no expert can tell you exactly how animals will behave. If they're thirsty, they will go off and find water, and if they feel like moving around, they will do that. So it's really great that we can show you this, because this is different behavior to what you are usually told. Most people always say lions and leopards will rest and sleep during the day and only move at night, but that's not the case. They will definitely move during the day if they want to. just got a comment from one of our viewers, and Molly. And Molly's had a better look at this male, and she says this is not the same male that we saw this morning. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. So I'm not sure which male this is. One of the other Birmingham males. So there's possibly another male around here somewhere, because we're not far from where we saw that other male and female. So who knows? That could be the female that we saw this morning that walked back towards the rest of the pride and she left the male possibly around here. And this could be another female with the male, and they've moved away from the pride. And I'm not too sure where they are going. And it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. Now Steph can hear, apparently Steph on his walk can hear buffalo distress calls around Gallagher shortcut, which is not too far from where we are. So I wonder, there's no way of getting around these lines now, but I think we should stick with them. Maybe they'll take us into that area. Let's just see. I'm going to stop up ahead and just listen and see if we can hear those calls. Alright, let's just stop and listen here for a second. I'm just going to take my earpiece out so I can use both my ears. I can't hear anything at the moment. I think we may still be a little bit far from where we are. Trying to listen, everybody, but I don't hear anything. Okay, we're going to stick with these lines and see where they go. I'm going to carry on listening out for that buffalo that Steph says he can hear. While I do that, let's head back to Taylor and that big male leopard and see what they're up to.
We are still sitting with the beautiful king, and we are watching him pant away and swat all the flies. He hasn't caught any flies just yet. I've been doing a count. Almost. That was close. That was the closest he's come so far. And I'm sure you can hear the buffalo weavers behind me. Typical. Every single time I mention birds, they stop chatting. And the reason why I like to point out the bird calls as we sit with the various animals, it's just quite nice, I think, to start learning the calls as well. It's one thing being able to identify the various birds, of course, by sight. It takes a whole new skill to identify them by hearing. And I think it's nice for you to sit at home and be able to go, I know that bird. I'm sure you're getting some great screenshots as he tries to bite all the flies. But he hasn't really shown us any other signs of moving just yet. He hasn't started grooming himself. And I'm sure he'll give himself a quick groom before he does get up and start moving. We know that this is normally one of the signs. However, oh no, I was just about to say, with all this sort of jumping around and trying to swat all the flies, perhaps he's going to need another siesta. And just before I could get those words out, well, it looks like he's going to have another nap again. I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to get up just yet and start wandering around the bush. I think it's a bit too warm. I don't even think we've seen any impala yet this afternoon. Now we're watching him swat away, and I know that myself and of course the other presenters, we always chat about how in Kenya and Tanzania we often see the lions and things sitting up in trees to avoid all the biting insects, and Alice is wondering exactly that. Alice says this afternoon, why hasn't he gone up a tree to avoid the insects? Now Alice, I don't know. That's where I would be. I'd be sitting definitely on the top of a marula tree with nice and shade. He'd probably still have a couple of flies bothering him up there, but I think there's some ants and sorts of other goodies down on the ground, because he gets quite upset, and I don't think it's the flies that are doing all the biting. I think there's something else that's annoying him as well. You can see every time it's something around his rump, he swats the tail and then he kicks his back legs. He's getting very agitated. Now we're probably just going to be able to spend a couple more minutes here, but then we're going to have to pull out. I know there's some other guides who are dying to come and see, and we have spent a good amount of Mr. Tingana this evening. Of course, if there is a spot that perhaps opens up again a little bit later, well then, we can always see if we can come back. But I can hear another vehicle moving into the sighting, and I know that Ephraim has only just got here with his guests, so I feel as though we're going to have to leave in a minute or two. My goodness, those buffalo weavers are making all sorts of noise. Isn't this lovely? Right, I think grab your final screenshots as he glares back at us. Isn't that lovely? And I'm going to have to do a little bit of maneuvering now to get myself out of this little situation that I got myself into. But let's go back across to Steph and see how he's doing in the sun.
You caught us busy following up on some birds making an alarm call just in front here. And you know, it's always a good thing this time of the year to follow up on birds making alarm calls, because quite often it can sort of result in a sighting of something. Either it be a snake or a lizard or a bird of prey, a little bird of prey like an owl. Now we are walking into the sun, forgive us for this, and I am going to have to pull some branches out of the way for Brian here. Here you go. Don't forget, we are walking around live here on foot. It is a bit difficult to thread our way sometimes through these thick bushes. Now, I am busy looking out for... Oh, there we go. It was a nightjar. No, didn't get him, eh? And they are so difficult to... They are just so difficult to get a second time. But that's not what these birds are busy calling about. That nightjar was sitting here. It's not what these birds are alarm calling about. Let's see what is going on here. So you've got to be careful in bush like this that you're not... Okay, so we've got a southern black tit at the top here. What are you alarm calling about? I can hear the birds in the front here. What you don't want to do is step on a black mamba or a puff adder, or something that these birds are seeing and you not. So you just got to take your care here. Let's see. This bush could harbor near anything, from a snake all the way through to an owl. Okay, so now we're here. Let's see where we can see these birds bouncing around in, because that'll give us another good idea. I can hear them, but I can't see them inside there. Let's see. And of course now they've stopped. The law of the jungle. Let's see if we can sneak up on that nightjar one last time. Whatever it was must have flown away. Let's see. That nightjar flew up and into this bush here. Now, they'd be sitting on the ground. They use the camouflage that they have on top of their backs to camouflage them against the floor. Sometimes you find nightjars that are actually sitting on branches just this high or so above the ground. But generally speaking, they are on the ground this time of the day. Now we just got to scan here. We're probably going to fly up, to be honest. So it flew up there and landed over here somewhere. See if I can flash it for us. I don't suggest following me in here. It'll probably be a little bit of a nightmare to try and get around. And also that nightjar hasn't come up here. Could it have been? Oh, it's just so disappointing not being able to show you anything, I tell you. Knowing something's here but not being able to show it to you is deeply frustrating. But anyway, over that, Ella has definitely found something for you. We'll carry on looking.
We've got a very common animal at the moment. We have got a nice herd of buffalo who seem to be very relaxed, of course, because indeed the Nkumas are far, far away from them. So buffalo, enjoy the peace and quiet, I hope, while it lasts. And we can see them browsing again, and I've been saying this over and over. That's when you know that there is not enough food around, is when the buffalo start to browse. They really only do it when they are quite desperate. We're going to have to wait a couple more days until the grass comes back through. It's slightly greening up again, but I think it'll just need a little bit more time. The ground was so thirsty, it really just absorbed every drop of water that came from the skies. Now, something that I thought we would do, seeing as though we're in the area, we're on Cheetah Cut Line at the moment, is I'd like to go and have a look at that buffalo carcass that died of sort of an injury he sustained from another buffalo bull. And I'm wondering what that's going to look like. Well, and I'm wondering what it's going to smell like too. So I think let's carry on, and I'm going to carry on. I just caught the last part of that. Tula Ann, you've just made my day. So everyone, Tula Ann is 4 years old, and she has asked, are buffalo just like cows, but with hats? I absolutely love that description, Tula Ann. That is something that I've never heard before, describing the horns of the buffalo as a hat. That is lovely. Well done to you, and I love the creative minds that the youth of today has. Now, Tula Ann, they are very much like cows. These are just very angry cows. They're not quite as relaxed as the ones that you see that make lots of milk for us, or the ones that you just see out in the field and the different farmyards. But they are definitely in the same family. They don't always seem to have as much hair covering their body. Sometimes their hair seems to be a little bit more sparse. And then, of course, they've got the different type of horns on their head, like a big helmet. Now, Tula Ann, it's important that, especially the males, they have those big helmets. And here's a word, what you call that? It's called a boss. Now, I'm sure you can say the word boss. Now, the boss is very, very important, of course, because it, like I said, it acts as a helmet. So when the boy buffaloes are fighting each other, when they're banging heads, they run from far away and they bah! and they clash heads like that. And of course, you know, when you go to ride your bicycle, you have to put your helmet on because of safety, and that's exactly what that is it just prevents your brain from banging around in your head too much. But we're moving on from those buffalo now. They were unfortunately disappearing into Torchwood. They were just out of range. But I really want to go and have a look and see how this other buffalo is doing. We're not too far. We're actually just around the corner. We should be taking a sharp left any moment now. And then we'll need to find the track that I've gone in so many times. And see, I haven't seen any vulture activity. So I don't think that the vultures have got it just yet, but perhaps with all the hyenas that have been going up and down. Remember I said this morning, very early on in the drive, that I'd seen lots and lots of hyena footprints. I didn't come up this way, and I'm pretty sure that that carcass is going to smell absolutely vile now. So I'm going to go in with my hand in front of my face, and I should have probably brought some of that Vicks vapor rub to put under my nose, and then I would have been alright. I think that's probably what I'll have to buy when I go on holiday next, on my next vacation, is something mentally that I can pop under my nose and it doesn't smell so bad. Because, you know, I haven't got a weak stomach, I'm not too bad, but, well, it's just something about a rotting buffalo carcass that gets underneath my skin. Get there eventually. Well, let me just check my GPS and make sure that I haven't missed the road. I could be going in the complete opposite way. Bim, are we going right? No, I think we're right. I think I'm coming to my turn off now. Yes. This is the road that I want to actually go on. Is it? I don't know if I checked properly. No, I went too far. Bim, we went too far. Well, goodness gracious. My GP, I'm not concentrating very well apparently this afternoon. We need to do a little bit more of a detour. I thought that we were not as far up Cheetah Cut Line, but I think that I was chatting VM's left ear off and I was forgetting exactly where I was. It's okay. That's all right. Sometimes the scenic way around is quite nice. I don't mind it at all. We'll have a little look around here. Perhaps there's something interesting. Let's see. I'd actually like to try and find millipede this afternoon. I enjoy seeing them on safari, and because we went so many months without seeing them, I don't mind every day just having a little millipede appreciation. Oh, hang on. Oh no, we're right. No, we're not lost. Is this where we went? Yes, we need to get in here. They've just moved the tree that was in the road. I can smell it. I can smell that buffalo already. No, that's. We can go a little bit further to get into 4x4. Just going up a bit of a steep. Here we go. It's stinky from here. Right, let's go through here. Now we should start to see it. Just need to change my... Oh, hang on. I actually see a vulture. There was a...
There's a warbird there.
Is there? Where are you looking, Vian? Okay. It looks actually like the vultures are down on that carcass. I've just seen a couple flying down. Let's go around to it. And let's see the damage that the vultures have done to it. We'll just sneak through here. Oh my goodness. This is going to be wonderful. Okay. There seem to be a lot of vultures flying away. So what we will do is we'll try not get too close. We'll watch for a distance, and then we'll have to wait for the vultures to settle down again, of course, because they're going to be a bit nervous of us. We'll get a little bit closer though, and we know it only takes a couple of minutes before they get brave again and they come back and realize that we're not indeed a threat. But that's exciting. I was worried that that carcass was going to go to waste. Thank goodness for the vultures. Well done on spotting that, vultures. Right, we'll get a little bit closer. We can start to see it just through here. And just diddle-dally along. It's okay, vultures, don't worry. We just want to watch you devour this carcass. Right. I'm going to try and get into a nice position now and sit patiently and wait for these vultures. But while we do, let's go back across and see how Mr. Winterboer is doing.
This is such a rare treat. We're on foot 10 or 15 yards away from the scrub hare, who seems absolutely oblivious to us even being here. And it's just giving us such a unique daytime view of this animal that we normally only see by spotlight and then for fleeting glimpses. Just have a look at that. You know, and if I were to say what the sighting was of the day, or is of the day, around these string of pans that we've been visiting, this would have to be it. This takes the cake at being very, very special. Here you can have a view of what the scrub hare is doing, what they do in the daytime, and just completely relaxed. Have a look at those blood vessels in their ears. Give you some indication as to what it's like to be me. Blood just pounding through those ears. Way to keep cool, but also to hear. Let's move around this tree a little bit. I don't want to get closer, but what I do want to do is just shift left a little bit, just so that we can get into a view here. I must be honest with you, this hare is probably out because it's starving. They are grass eaters, and unlike rabbits, hares do not dig burrows. One of the major differences between a hare and a rabbit is the fact that a rabbit digs a burrow and a hare just has a scrape, basically. Another difference is the fact that a rabbit has altricial young, which means that the young are born blind and helpless, whereas a scrub hare has fewer babies, but they are born precocial, which means that precocious, which means that they can see and walk and function as adults from very close to birth. This this hare is just literally moving from tuft of grass to tuft of grass next to this pan, and I would wager that it's probably the only grass around here at the moment. Let's see if I can get a better view for you through here. No, that's about the best view that we're going to get. Oh, that is such a treat. Let's have the sunlight streaming through the ears. Now, Lord Tifferon, you've just asked a very good question. Is this introduced or is it native? Lord Tifferon, this is a endemic or a indigenous species. We have the scrub hare and there are a few endemic rabbits as well. The riverine rabbit is one of South Africa's best known rabbits, mainly because it's also one of the most critically endangered species that we have. We also get the Cape hare, but this scrub hare is here. This is the only one of the lagomorphs, as we call them, to occur in this particular area. There is a rodent that looks like a hare called a spring hare that occurs up on the Highveld, up on the inland plateau, but we don't find them here. There's a front-on shot of this guy. And while we are with them, it's just so nice to spend some time. This is just such an unusual sighting. Have a look at that massive eye. Using bottom canines, or incisors, excuse me, not canines, so incisors, the front teeth, to shear off grass, and those incisors never stop growing. They pretty much grow non-stop and are worn down through the feeding action and through rubbing against the top incisors. So the top incisor sharpens and shortens the bottom incisor and keeps them like little shears, which they can cut the grass. The rabbit, or the hare, excuse me, I keep on saying rabbit. The hare then swallows the grass. It comes out as a blackish pellet, which that hare will then re-ingest through a process called coprophagy, or the eating of dung. And because it's changed chemically the first time round, the rabbit is then able to have a second go at it and basically get as much nutrients from as little grass as possible. And that is why these hares are some of the most successful. We find them all the way, not quite in true desert, but they are sort of semi-arid specialists. I just find their ears, it's not every day that you get to see an animal with such big ears. And although we are used to stories from a young age of hares and rabbits with their massive ears, it never ever fails to amaze me, sort of like a giraffe's long neck or a zebra's stripes, as to just how bizarre this particular feature of theirs is. Not only cupped to catch sound, but also, as Bri has just so rightly said, a way of thermoregulation, so a way to shed heat. And they can keep their ears flat against their body, along their back, which actually warms up the blood as well. So it's a double-edged thermoregulation tool, basically. They can wave their ears up and keep themselves nice and cool, and then they can fold them flat against their back, and it keeps them nice and warm, or at least keeps them warmer, and they don't use as much heat. But have a look here, it's coming around the front here. I mean, oh, there we go. Look at those long legs. Used for running and jinking away. Just amazing. And now you're going to be leaving us to go through to yet another, I say that, but yet another surprise that we have in store for you. And we'll see you later.
It is indeed another surprise. Look at this, everyone. These lions have found another buffalo. Now, I say found because when we managed to follow them through this very thick or dense thicket, it's almost like they knew where they were going though. So I don't know if they killed this buffalo or if it died of natural causes and they've just found it and are coming to feed on it. You can see that stomach is very swollen, of that buffalo, so I think it has been dead for a while. Maybe it was killed this morning and it's just swollen during the course of the day. So perhaps these lions killed this buffalo earlier, and they went to go and drink, and then returned to feed on it. Now I can see this is the male with that very bad scar around the nose. So as one of our viewers said earlier, this is not the male we saw this morning, and it definitely isn't. So I'm not too sure where they are. That other couple, or pair rather, not couple. Can you believe it? Wow, these lions have been so fortunate with buffalo. It's very unfortunate for the buffalo, but again, this is nature, and this is nature's way of maintaining a balance. If the buffalo herds get too large, they can really devastate an area especially when it's dry, because they feed on grass and they're bulk feeders, so they constantly feed. Even though they are ruminants, they do still feed on a lot of grass and constantly move through an area, just like cattle do. So you can imagine huge herds. And this is nature's way of finding a balance, I think, and thinning out the buffalo numbers a little bit. It has been a bad drought and animals have suffered, but it is all part of the life cycle and part of nature. And luckily for these lions, they get another meal, which is great. So this is very interesting. I'd love to know what happened here. We really don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe these lions did kill the buffalo, possibly went and drank. There was no need for them to feed earlier. I mean, these lions have been feeding on buffalo almost every day. So it's interesting, very, very interesting. And sometimes we will never know what happened, which is okay. The mystery is sometimes what is so intriguing. We had to do some serious off-road driving to get in here. Dave and I, it was a moment where we didn't think we were going to make it through. And quite a deep drainage line that we had to cross. Still don't know how we're going to get out of here, but we'll worry about that later. And see, that male's still very, very hot and not interested in feeding. He's panting quite heavily. That's how I can tell that he is warm. His mouth's open. That scar is actually looking much, much better. It's incredible how these animals are able to heal. Look at that. That's amazing. Oh, there's a lovely cool breeze just blowing at the moment. Look at those teeth. Wow. This doesn't look like a very big buffalo either. I would say it's probably a teenager or young female. So Susan has sent through a comment about this lioness's tail. Susan says it looks like quite powerful and they could probably knock things over with it, or even cause bruises if they had to hit us with their tail. Susan, those tails are very powerful. They're very thick and muscular and very, very strong. I've never been hit by a lion's tail before, but I would imagine it's probably a little painful. I think if I'd been hit by the tail, I probably wouldn't be here to tell the tale. But yes, they are quite powerful and quite thick. Lael from Washington has asked us a question. Lael would like to know, will male lions ever fight amongst each other over females? Yes, Lael, definitely. They definitely will. Even, obviously, males from and that are not related, that come into contact to fight for territory, they will fight basically for females. The prides that are in the area, they will fight for dominance to be able to mate with those females. But even males that are part of a coalition, which means they are probably brothers or they are related in some way, not necessarily always. Occasionally you may have males from different prides that meet up when they are young and they form a coalition, but those coalitions will stick together, and together they are able to have much larger territories. But even though they work together to protect territories against other male lions, they will fight amongst themselves for dominance over females so that they can mate with them. Success for a lion is basically, and this goes for nature in general, success is to have a large territory or to have an area that you patrol and roam and to have offspring. That is basically it. That is success in nature. And for these lions to have a large territory and mate with these females and have offspring, they are then considered to be successful. Look how powerful that female is. She's moving that whole buffalo. So a question from Musical in Colorado, and they would like to know, would lions ever take on a hippo? Yes, definitely. I have seen lions actually run and attack and jump on a hippo while it's leaving a small little water hole like we saw earlier. So 100% yes, they would. Usually smaller hippo are a bit easier to bring down, but it's not to say they won't go for a larger hippo either. So yes, they will indeed go for hippo. We're going to sit with these lions and their new buffalo carcass for a while. While we do that, let's head back to Taylor for an update on the old buffalo carcass.
Now, the vultures unfortunately haven't quite made their return just yet, but there's a couple that are sitting around and their crops are not full at all. And if we have a look at this carcass itself, it actually doesn't look like they've eaten much of it at all. But let's have a little closer examination. Now, this is going to be quite gruesome, so do bear in mind that there are going to be lots of maggots on this carcass. But you can see it's not as bloated as what it was yesterday morning. But definitely no obvious open sections yet. Perhaps if these vultures, if they were feeding, were mainly feeding from the rump and possibly around the eyes and the mouth, but they haven't opened it up just yet. You can see all those maggots moving around. Now, maybe these vultures only just discovered it quite recently, possibly in the last little bit. This is an unusual time for them to continue feeding as it's starting to get dark. And there is a white-backed vulture that is just sort of standing and watching. You can see it through there. And you can see how its crop is not full at all. And the others are all sitting in the trees, but they don't seem to be exceptionally excited by this buffalo carcass like what we saw the other day. But we'll definitely follow up on it again. But I want you to have another look at those maggots. I think it's time that we pay the maggots some attention, of course. Now, as gross as they may be, they're really important. They're a great source of food for various birds. We've seen the crested francolins often coming up to the carcasses and picking at the maggots. The starlings will do the same thing. And of course, I don't know, I have never seen a bush pig up here, but bush pig love to scavenge on carcasses, and it's often the maggots that they're feeding on. Like I said, very good source of protein. Now, it's quite interesting because with Mfumo, the Birmingham male lion who had the injury in his face, we discussed how it was a type of myiasis. Now, the maggots that you're seeing on this carcass, unfortunately, are not from the same species of fly, whichever fly it may have been that caused that specific type of myiasis. These maggots are feeding on the dead tissue, whereas the maggots that had hatched inside Mfumo's face were, of course, maggots that were feeding on live flesh. But luckily it seems to be healing up. And now there's a species of fly that they use in the States called Califorrid, which is the specific species of fly, and they take their maggots and they actually introduce them onto patients. Perhaps if they've got maybe necrosis of the skin, they will put a couple of sterilized maggots. Now, it has to be from a specific species because the specific fly only eats dead tissue. It doesn't touch the living tissue. And of course, they are bred in a lab, sort of under sterile conditions. Then they are then introduced onto the wound where the doctors will let them do their magic and eat away at all the dying flesh. And I think that is quite amazing that they're able to do something incredible like that. But that's the story of the maggots for this afternoon. We're going to make our way out of here. I don't want to keep disturbing these vultures too much. Perhaps it is us why they're not happy with us, so we will leave them. I just very quickly wanted to show you the beautiful maggots that are on there. But like VM and I were just chatting about, and I think I mentioned it yesterday, was that with all those maggots that are going to provide all sorts of meals for the different animals, I'm not looking forward to all the flies that are going to be produced from them. So I'm hoping that all the different bird species hurry up and get here and eat as many of the larvae as they can. But now I need to do a couple of maneuvers to get out of here. Let's go back across to Byron and those ever so successful Nkuhumas.
just the female that's feeding at the moment. She's trying to break open the carcass, and look how she's licking there. It's very, very interesting. And the reason for that is because their tongues are so rough, and sometimes they can lick away skin completely. They've got very, very rough tongues. Look, if you have a close-up of a tongue, it almost looks like it's barbed. It's got little hairs on it. Very, very rough. And then she'll try use the front teeth to tear open the carcass. I take my hat off to Taylor, who went to go and have a look at that old carcass, because I assume the smell is not very pleasant around there. So rather Taylor than me. This one hasn't started smelling yet, but I've got a feeling that if this lion manages to break that stomach open, it's not going to be very pleasant. Look at that lion chewing with the side of its mouth now. Just the right hand side. And the reason for that is these lions, they've got something called a carnassial shear. And the carnassial shear, these teeth right at the back of their mouths, so the molars and the premolars. And what they do is they actually overlap with each other, so they form a slightly sharpened edge, and then therefore cause a scissor motion. And obviously that's where all the muscles are, right at the back of the jaw, and they're able to feed and chew and tear meat with that shear at the back, those really tough, hard molars and premolars and all that muscle at the back of the jaw. So they'll prefer to feed with that, but, and you can see this female doing this now, they will still use their front teeth to try and tear open the carcass before they get to the meat and before they start using the sides of their mouths to feed on it. It's interesting, the male hasn't been interested in feeding at all. He's possibly still full from all the buffalo they had the previous day. So Deborah, armchair traveler. Hi Deborah, good afternoon, almost good evening to you. And Deborah says she's very curious as to why this male isn't feeding either, and very surprised that he's not feeding. And like I say, Deborah, possibly just because they've been feeding on so many buffalo, or daily. It's been a daily occurrence. So yeah, I think maybe later he'll start feeding again. They're very opportunistic, and I think that's exactly what's happened here. Is because these lions either found this buffalo or killed it earlier this morning. I'm not sure. We don't know. And like I said, that's actually, it's nice to have a bit of mystery at times. But he's not interested in feeding. But it seemed as if they knew exactly where to go, because we followed them almost directly to the spot. They walked through and down into quite a deep drainage line, not far from Mvubu Road, and we're basically between Mvubu and Gallagher shortcut. It's a little tricky, this area. Like I said, I don't know how we're going to get out of here because we did some serious off-roading to get in here. But at the end of the day, we will do as much as we can to get you to see these amazing sightings. Selena has asked us a question: do lions kill even if they're not hungry? Selena, yes they do. And the reason for that is, as I said, they're so opportunistic. All these big cats are. I've seen lions feeding on a wildebeest, and while they were feeding, another one walked past, and they all got up and chased that one too and tried to kill it. So even if they're not hungry, they will still try and hunt. And the reason for that is because they don't know when their next meal is going to come about. You know, occasionally, sometimes the year lions aren't very successful, and they can go 2 or 3 days without food. So if there's a chance to hunt and have spare food around, they will definitely do it and definitely take that opportunity. Lovely peaceful afternoon. Still a few birds calling. I can hear a Jacobin cuckoo calling in the distance. I can hear a pearl spotted owl. I think those are a little bit too far for you to pick up on or to hear. But there's some interesting birds calling. Cape turtle dove. We always say it's got that call which sounds like it's saying work harder. Work harder, work harder. But then I joke with my guests and say, but that's what it says in the morning, and in the afternoons, it's drink lager, drink lager. But again, I don't think so. Wow, that lioness is really tucking into that buffalo, trying to rip it open. So Selena has asked, will these ticks jump off the buffalo? And Selena, if you have a look closely, let's see if we can zoom in, but there are still ticks on that buffalo. You can see there's still a few ticks around there. And I think some of these ticks might get eaten by the lions because they are just hanging onto the skin of the buffalo. But I think when they are disturbed, chances are they'll probably move off a little bit while the lions are feeding, but I wouldn't be surprised. You can see this buffalo is covered in ticks. So I wouldn't be surprised if the lions do actually eat some of those ticks. And some of them may even climb onto the lions. The lions also get ticks at times. We're probably going to leave these lions shortly, but just before we do, let's get an update from Taylor. She's got a large bird that she'd like to show you.
We have found a family of hornbills, and look at the juvenile that's coming out now. This is the first time I've seen the juvenile. Isn't that beautiful? They are really, really lovely birds. Now, I don't think I've seen this group before, or they've done a really good job at hiding the youngster from us. Here you can see some of the adults walking around. And I'm quite impressed, because this little one does seem to be scavenging for food on its own. Normally they just walk around and follow the adults and wait for one of them to pick up something. And then they come calling and making lots of noise. I'm going to reposition. I think I'm going to go forward. We might catch them again. Let's see if we can get another glimpse. I think we will get another glimpse too if we just park up a little bit ahead, and we'll just be patient. I'm not going to go too close to them, but I think we'll get a gap here and they might come out onto the road. Well, it's through a few trees, but I think when they eventually come across and cross the road, it'll be quite nice. There's 3 of them, and I did see another one crossing up ahead, so I could count 4. Now, I wish one of you would catch a chameleon for me, please. That looks like a female at the back. Not quite as bright red as the male. Oh, I'd really like to actually go over and have a look at that hornbill's dung. What do you think? I think we should go over. I've never seen hornbill dung before. I'm sure it just looks very much like other bird dung. But let's see if they get away a little bit, or move further away, and then perhaps we'll go and have a look. Let's start making our way that side. It'll be quite interesting to see, considering that they eat sort of quite large prey, and of course they scavenge quite a bit. Let's see, we'll just take the sneaky little link road. And everyone else is giving their last call for the evening. The magpie shrikes are shouting. Okay, before I do that, let's watch them before they disappear, because they're going into some thick stuff now. They're moving away. Off that one goes. And this is actually really nice. You can actually see the difference between a male, a female, as well as a juvenile. We saw with that juvenile, it's almost got grey facial skin. It's going to pop out now on the right. Here it is. Almost a bit of a yellow tinge to the throat, to that vocal sac. Have you found something? There we go. Well done. Learning as it goes along. That's nice. I like to see that they're not just relying on the parents. Oh, we're missing one more. Right, let's move forward. Let's go across quickly and have a look at this feces. Now, I know you're probably thinking it's quite bizarre. But like I said, I want to have a little examine. Now, I must be careful not to drive over it. VM, be on the lookout for the poop. Oh, I see it. Right, I'm going to jump out very quickly. Can you see it just over there? I want to go and have a closer look myself. Right, let me unplug my lifeline here. Now, I'm going to have to go the long way around VM, because I'm not going to walk into this knob thorn. And I apologize if I'm quite dirty. I was doing all sorts of things on the vehicle today, so I'm not the cleanest. Probably not going to touch it with my hands, so we'll find a stick. Actually doesn't smell very nice. Bit stinky, as you can imagine feces would smell, huh? So look, there's a little fly. Can you see that little fly that's already probing around here, having a little look? Can you see it, VM? It's just there. It's really small. I'm going to open up this poo a little bit. Very sticky. Looks a little bit like chocolate sauce. Could be vanilla and chocolate ice cream. Now, I was wondering if we were going to find anything inside this dung, but it doesn't look like. It seems as though they've got a very good digestive system. So look at all the flies coming around it now, getting all the moisture off of the feces. Beautiful green and blue. Isn't that lovely? Wonderful. But let's leave them. Not as interesting as I thought it was, just the very typical, the darker color, which you normally get, of course, with the birds, and then, of course, the white, which is all that uric acid. So remember, they've only got one opening. Everything comes out of that opening. I'm going to quickly zoom around and jump back in. Get that beautiful sunset, and you can see that massive cloud engrossing over the sky. Now, I wonder if we're going to get a thunderstorm. There's a couple of clouds that are building up. Right, I can finally hear again. Isn't that beautiful? Now, there's somewhere I want to take you. And I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet. But let's go back across to Byron and see if that lioness has had any luck with opening up the buffalo.
She's eaten a little bit more, Taylor. She's trying to get that stomach open, but watch, this male is now showing a bit more interest, and looks like he'd like to potentially start feeding. It's really funny to watch, actually. It's almost like he's not sure what to do. Really great to have seen those ground hornbills again with Taylor. I love seeing these rare birds. So I'm glad she got to show you them. We saw one this morning. It's always wonderful to see them around. can see that female's just tearing and trying to rip open that underside of the buffalo, trying to get to that soft meat. The male got up, walked around a little bit, licked the carcass once or twice, and then has just gone and laid down again. So I'm very surprised that he hasn't decided to start feeding. He looks very lazy. Or rather, maybe lazy is the wrong word. I think lazy is the wrong word. He looks content. He looks happy, relaxed. His food, it's still a very, very warm afternoon. So there's no need for him to move around or worry. This buffalo is definitely not going anywhere. So there'll be food here for the entire evening. You never know. The rest of the pride could eventually join them unless they've got some food elsewhere that we don't know about. Wow, look at that yawn. Wonderful. You can see those teeth. Now, usually yawning may indicate a sign of activity. May stand up and move around. And Brooklyn, age 10, has asked us a question. Why are all the buffalo dying? Are they sick? So, Brooklyn, what's happened is, I think these buffalo are very, very weak. They haven't had a lot of food. There's not a lot of grass around. And I'll ask Dave to show you just now, but at the moment, it's very, very dry. We've got little bits of green grass coming out. And if you look just off to our left, can you see here? There's actually no grass. There's little bits of greenery coming through because of the little bit of rain we had. But because there's no grass, there's not a lot of food for these buffalo to eat. So they're getting very thin, they're getting very weak, and it's because we call it a drought. So it's the dry season that we've had. It's been very, very dry, not a lot of rain, and that is why there's not a lot of food for these buffalo to eat. And that is why I think the main reason why they are a lot weaker, and because they've been hanging around in this area where these lions are prevalent and all over. The lions have been bumping into them on a daily basis, and that is why I think that it's easier for the lions to hunt them and feed on them, because these buffalo are not as strong as they usually are, and they're not able to get away as much. Oh, you can see that's all the stomach contents on that lioness. Ugh. Oh, look at, she's just stretching, trying to maybe stretch her claws. Often they do that to stretch them and clean them a little bit. They'll scrape them on the side of trees. Oh, that's interesting. And now just walking away. Look at the male tapping the back of her legs, trying to get her to lay down. Oh, watch her, everybody. I thought he may try and mate with this female, but he's not interested in the. Oh, he's just going to lay down again. This is incredible. Within the minute that the lioness has got up and walked away from the buffalo, I can hear a swarm of flies, and those flies are all over that carcass now. Just have a look at this. Look at all those flies. Isn't that incredible? Obviously the smell from those stomach contents being released is just too much, and it attracted all these flies. But literally within the minute that she stood up and moved away, those flies just invaded that buffalo carcass. Very, very interesting. Oh, hang on. Listen to this lioness. She just gave a very low contact call, a little oh, oh, but she stopped now. Listen. There we go. Come on, roar for us. That would be wonderful. Possibly trying to find out where the rest of the pride is. That's how lions communicate. They'll roar and call. Just trying to hear if I don't hear lions calling back, but that was a very soft contact call that she gave. If I have any idea where I think the rest of the pride is, a bit too far to hear that. But we're not sure. I mean, we didn't really know where these lions were. They popped out of nowhere this afternoon, and it was great to be able to follow them right back to this carcass. See, she's just cleaning herself a little bit there, but she's got all those stomach contents on her front legs. Look how she's cleaning her paws, and again using that tongue, that rough tongue, which is able to clean themselves, perhaps get little thorns out of the paws or the pads underneath, if they do have any. Very peaceful. It's amazing how peaceful it can be sitting next to these lions. And again, look at those legs covered in the buffalo stomach contents. And that male, that face tells a lot of stories. Listen. She keeps teasing us. One or two little calls, and then she stops again. And look, that male doesn't want to let her out of his sight, following her non-stop, staying very, very close to her. Wow, that's so interesting. They seem to be moving off now, further away into the thicket, and that's why I said I don't think they were necessarily that hungry on to eat this buffalo. Came across it, opportunistic, tried to feed a little bit, and now they're moving away again. It is very thick through there, and we are losing some light at the moment. It'll be tricky for me to follow them. I'm going to head around, try get to a road, and maybe we get them coming out on the other side. And while I do that, let's head to Steph and get an update from him. I hope he's had a good afternoon.
Byron at least telling us those words that are so loved to hear but so often do not out of Brent's mouth. You know, the bush is getting thick, oh, we can't follow the lions. You catch us busy sneaking up on a dwarf mongoose colony. They are in this little termite mound over here, and they have just dipped their heads down. There's one on the right hand side hole just sticking his forehead out. I can just see the forehead coming out. Right hand side hole, can you see there, Brian?
Yeah.
Watching us here. This is a troop of mongoose that live on quarantine and are actually quite relaxed around people, and I was wanting to see if they'd come out and share their home for the night with us and give us a little bit of those sunset tactics. Quarantine at the moment is just alive with animals. There's buffalo, there's lion on the one edge, there's dwarf mongoose, there's a flock of ground hornbill on the one side, waterbuck, impala, giraffe. It's just been a crazy day around quarantine. I'm not quite sure why. I think there's a lot of water around. I don't think it's because of the water. There's a lot of food around. It could be the quality of the grass on quarantine is just that much better than anywhere else. But for some reason, I'm yet to decide what it actually is. For some reason, I don't know why, but it just seems to be a hive of activity, and of course the lions making the most of the abundance, and I'm glad for it. I must be honest with you. Now, Heidi, you've come up with a suggestion on what chemicals are used to create the fire on that elephant dung. You've asked if it was soap and iodine. You may have got confused. It was a little bit of a tricky question in that I had quite clearly had some clear gel-like liquid in what looked to be a hand sanitizer bottle. And you're quite right there, it was hand sanitizer, but I had poured the soap out to pour that gooey substance in yesterday because the receptacle that I received it in was a little bit big for me to carry on my backpack, so I decided to put it into a hand sanitizer bottle. So you got it half right. Was it iodine? You're close, but not quite. Very similar to iodine, but not quite. In actual fact, I will say it is the other purple antiseptic that you get rather than iodine, and one that's kept quite commonly and was kept quite commonly decades ago. My grandmother used to keep a lot of this particular, or my great-grandmother at least, used to keep a lot of this particular antiseptic in her, I was going to say chemistry set, believe me, but in her medicine cabinet. There we go. Thank you, Brian. Hand signals. We're playing charades here for the rest of the evening. No, so not hand sanitizer, although it could probably be used as a base for hand sanitizer, and not iodine. However, that's a very, very close guess there, so we'll keep you guessing a little bit longer and see if you can get it. You were the only one that handed in a couple of suggestions, I think, and so good for you. Junebug has asked, now they come in here. Junebug has asked, was it bleach and alcohol? No, it wasn't bleach and alcohol. There was no alcohol-based substances in either of the two compounds that I used, and there wasn't bleach there. As far as I know, we can't use the one compound, the crystal that I used. You can't use for a bleach. However, it does dye purple quite well, giving you all the clues here to find it. So no, it wasn't bleach and alcohol. It wasn't soap and what was the other one? So no, that wasn't any of those ones that we've just used at the moment. But you're getting close. Or soap and iodine. No, it wasn't soap and iodine. It wasn't bleach and alcohol. But you are getting awfully close as to what it is. And you'd be surprised at how simple the answer is once you do find it, at least anyway. I don't know what these little dwarf mongoose are thinking at the moment. It obviously isn't. Let's come out and play with the humans on quarantine. Yes, now we're getting closer. So Mr. P. Hart, you said was one of them potassium permanganate, or Condy's crystals as it's commonly known. Yes, you're 100% right there. So one of the compounds was potassium permanganate or Condy's crystals. Quite often you use just a little bit in some water as an antiseptic, and my great-grandmother used to dye her hair quite purple with it from time to time. I'm still not quite sure where the habit came of dyeing hair purple with this particular substance came, but it's a fairly easily obtained substance across the counter. So well done, P. Hart, you got that 100% correct. So one of them was Condy's crystals, and now it's just left the other one. Shouldn't be too hard to get. You think to yourself, it's not hand sanitizer and not an alcohol-based compound, but it is clear, it is quite gel-like, and is used quite often in a medical kit or in a medicine cabinet at home. You should be able to get it quite quickly now, though, with half the riddle solved. And will burn pretty much anywhere, as far as I understand. Anna has just won the prize. Well done, Anna. It was glycerine and potassium permanganate. Well, congratulations. I'm very proud of everybody. So thank you very much for sending through all those things. It's actually been a wonderful quiz to have with you. And yes, it is. So it's glycerine and potassium permanganate. The ratio of which you just have to play with on your own. I'm not going to give you the ratio. You never know who's listening to these programs. So play with that ratio yourself. But you see, it's a wonderful fire starter at least, and a great party trick. One of those survival tricks that I can show you. All right. So we are going to be going to Brian, I think, for a little bit, and we're going to carry on walking across quarantine, apparently trying to dodge some buffalo and some lion that are around here. So we're going to keep our eyes peeled.
am indeed not by... Ooh, I don't know. Wait, was Steph trying to go to Byron? I'm not sure, but we've got Mr. Tingana, and that's all that matters, and he's fighting the flies. And now he's up and moving around. He was lying in some mud to try and keep cool, and I think try and keep away from the flies. There he goes. He's pacing it though, not happy at all about all these flies. So I'm just going to... Maybe we'll try and roll back. No, we're not going to run out of steam. We'll reverse quickly. Let's see where he's off to. But he's been biting the flies and fighting them. Not happy at all. Hey, big boy. Isn't this lovely? He is such a beautiful leopard. Are you going to try there? Or are you just using the luxury facilities? Now, this is the first proper opportunity I've really been able to photograph him. But look at the size of his neck. He is turning into a monster of a leopard. He's really looking lovely and good. And very healthy, which is great to see that the king is still indeed the king. And if he continues to look like this, well, then I think it's going to be very difficult that someone is going to take over his territory anytime soon. I think I ate a fly. I'm just going to swallow. That was nasty. Right, now I'm going to go around quickly. Bear with me for 2 seconds. Now, Wild Earth Girl, you want to know, do lions or leopards show any preference to their left or right paw? Not that I've seen. However, you know, with humans, how we all have a dominant foot or a dominant hand, I couldn't imagine it not being that with cats. We see it with elephant. They have a preference whether they're left or right-handed, which tusk they seem to use more. So I reckon that it is quite possible, and that's a question I've never been asked before. So, Wild Earth Girl, thank you. It's something that I'll have to do a bit more research about. It's something that I haven't come across just while reading. And I wonder if actually anybody would be able to know the difference. I don't know what you would look for. If you'd look for perhaps more wearing in the pads of their feet, perhaps that would be an indication. But you can see him there. He's very much frustrated with, of course, all these flies. And I thought that he may earlier have got up and moved to a pile of mud, which he was doing. But I think, unfortunately, all that did was brought more flies towards him because, of course, they're also going after the moisture. It's extremely hot today. But there we go. That's some beautiful shots that I'm sure you'll be able to get. My lens is way too long now, so you're going to have to take lovely pictures for me. Of course, it's getting a bit dark to really get any good photos. So there he goes. Now, I hope he doesn't cross south. That's the risk. Let's quickly try and... I'm going to give him a bit of room, because this morning he didn't seem to be too happy with the vehicles. But he doesn't seem too bothered by us, and of course, it's just us moving. Okay, we need to quickly try and take a gap. I'm going to get in front of him again. I'm going to give him a wide berth. Otherwise, we're going to lose him. And I think he's going to cross south off of our traverse. We're right on Gowrie Main now. So let me try and zip around. And sometimes these cats just have off days. So he hasn't shown us that he's upset with us at all. But just from his behavior this morning of not wanting to be seen, it's quite unusual for him. So let's give him a bit of room. But luckily he's sat down again. You'll see him coming up on the right now. Just want to position us nicely so we've got some decent light. There we go. And he's very relaxed with us. We're probably about 20 meters or so away from him. Looks a lot closer, but we're actually not. And there he is. Looks much happier now. Just angle those lights at him. Hello, big boy. And look at that beautiful face of his. I can't help but take a couple of pictures. Like I said, this is the first time that I've really had the opportunity to see him. I want to take full advantage of this. But it's difficult. It's easier, I think, for you to take photos and take the screenshots, because I've got to have my ISO right up and my shutter speed quite low, which makes it quite difficult in this light to photograph. Now you can really see how majestic this leopard is. And with those clouds coming over, it's potentially a good evening to hunt. Hopefully they will engulf the sky. The only thing though is we seem to have a downpour of rain and then the leopards disappear for quite a few days. So I hope they don't, if it does rain, I hope they don't go for too long. You can also hear the birds calling for one last time before the light disappears. The cicadas in the background as well. That's that high-pitched noise that you're hearing that we've been chatting about. Shame, big man. You need some elephant dung to be burnt around you, and then perhaps all those insects will leave you alone. Right, we're going to unfortunately lose this leopard, so I think it's time to say goodbye to him. But let's go back across to Steph. Or maybe we'll have another sighting of him, but let's go back to Steph very quickly.
Yeah, it has become weirdly dark much sooner than I was expecting it to tonight. And here we are standing on quarantine, literally where we started the walk today, sharing it with these two beautiful Nyala bulls that we have behind us. They're busy watching us with, I think, mild amusement. Uncommon for them to be in the open. Generally, Nyala are associated with quite thick bush, but I think that there's something flowering here and they're making the most of it, or leafing here, and they're making the most of an untouched resource at the moment. But like I said, it has come to that time of the day when we're having to say goodbye. So I just want to say thank you very much on behalf of Brian and myself for joining us on the bushwalk this afternoon. Thank you very much for all your questions and your support once again. And we'll be on walk again tomorrow morning. So catch you bright and early. We're going to send you over to Byron.
So everyone, we managed to get out of that dense thicket and drive around, and we thought we'd find the pair again, but we haven't. This is a different lioness. Can you believe it? She's come out of a thicket somewhere, also in this area. So all these lions seem to be around here somewhere. I'm hoping she heads towards a plain. I'm just scanning around. We did hear something up ahead. Maybe the other lions are not too far. And you can see, I can tell it's a different lioness immediately. Look how clean those front legs are. Not as dirty as the one we were with. And I think she may go and drink at the waterhole just off to the side. Let's go around quickly and see where she goes. Maybe we find the others up ahead. Let's look. I did hear something. It sounded like a growl or a grunt. Let's look carefully. Don't see anything just yet. Let's just have a look if this lioness comes out to drink. That would be wonderful with the light that we've got left. I'm just going to wait here. There she comes. Hang on. I do think she's going to go and drink. It's been a hot afternoon, so I'm going to reposition quickly so we can get her coming to the waterhole. She could also change her direction completely though. Let's see. There she comes. Don't want to shine the spotlight directly on her, just in front of her, just for enough light so we can see her clearly. And this was probably the female that we saw this morning with that other male, and I don't know where he is gone. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that reflection, everybody. Oh my word, this is wonderful. Look at that. That's really, really fantastic. And this is kind of what we've been waiting for, you know, sightings like this, the patience, following these lions, we struggled to get out of that little block that we were in. We took a chance coming around thinking this is the nearest water, perhaps that male and female come and drink here, and then all of a sudden we bumped into another lioness that we saw moving through the dense thicket. This is great. We've been so lucky this afternoon. What a fantastic afternoon. I hope you have all enjoyed it as much as we have. I've loved these lions. They've been so kind to us. Been more active than lions usually are in the heat of the afternoon. Look at those eyes. Now notice her tongue actually curls backwards while she's drinking. Is lapping up the water. Can you see that? So they don't get a lot of water with each lap of the water or each lick. So that is why these animals, when they do get to drink, lion and leopard and all these big cats, they tend to drink for quite a long time because they need to get as much water as possible. That is magnificent. So peaceful. I'm not sure if you can hear her lapping up the water. It's very soft, very faint. And Dave just told me you can hear it. Listen again. Wonderful. Red-chested cuckoo calling in the distance. That bit my fro, bit my fro. And as I said, look how much water this lioness is drinking. She's drinking a huge amount. Staying down there, sipping and sipping and sipping because she's been very hot. I'm assuming today it was a hot day. So she's getting all the water she can get for now. Quench that thirst and then move on again. Very curious to know where the male is. So I think that's about it for the afternoon with all these lions. It's been such an exciting afternoon. I'm so glad we got to show you all this lion activity, the buffalo and the lions drinking. A big thank you to Dave on camera with me this afternoon. Thanks, Dave. And we will see you all tomorrow. From myself, Byron, thank you very much. We'll see you on tomorrow morning's Sunrise Safari. Back to Taylor, and she will end the show.
We've still got Tingana. Thankfully he didn't cross. He's just getting very frustrated because of all the flies. Though I'm scared I'm going to jinx it for him. He seems to not be as agitated in his new spot. He has, since we last saw you, moved 3 times. He even resorted to sitting underneath a large fruited bush willow. And he covered himself with all the branches and the leaves, but not even that could keep the insects at bay. But finally, it seems as though he is coming to peace, or at least it's maybe getting a bit dark now, and perhaps all the flies are going away. They've stopped bothering me so much. So maybe it's just a couple that are hard workers and don't mind working overtime. You can see all those flies still hanging around. He said, now go home, flies. You're supposed to be diurnal, not nocturnal, and give Mr. Tingana a break. He's had to put up with all your nonsense the entire day. It's quite ridiculous. Don't worry, Tingana. I will leave some elephant poop burning for you. And then hopefully that will help a little bit. Hopefully we'll be able to follow up on him again in the morning. Maybe he won't go south, but perhaps he'll come back north VM says that he hopes to hear his calls this evening on quarantine, and of course so do I. I miss the rasping of a leopard. Now, I didn't get to do my leopard call for you, unfortunately, and with him sitting so close, I'm probably not going to do it, just in case it upsets him a little bit. But tomorrow morning, I promise that I shall do a leopard call for you, and whoever else is driving, maybe if Steph's out on a walk again, we're going to get him to do one. We'll practice tonight perhaps. Now, unfortunately, we're coming through to the last few seconds of the show, and I hope you've had a wonderful day with us. I just want to say thank you to all the lovely ladies in Final Control and everybody else, Steph and Byron. Hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you for the Sunrise Safari.